Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire.
There's always a tweet, and with the New York Times reporting that President Trump paid just $750 in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017, and no federal income taxes whatsoever for 10 of the previous 15 years before that. His old statements are exposing some stunning hypocrisy, like this one from 2012. Trump blasting the American people, saying, quote, half of Americans don't pay income tax despite crippling government debt. Mind you, the average tax filer pays $12,000 a year, considerably more than the president has. Later that year, Trump attacked President Obama. He said, quote, Barack Obama, who wants to raise all our taxes, only pays 20.5% on $790K salary. Do as I say, not as I do. That year, Obama paid more than $162,000 in federal taxes. And in another attack on Obama, Trump says, quote, have we ever had a POTUS before Barack Obama who earned over 1/3 of his income from foreign sources and paid taxes to another country? The Times reporting that as president, Trump has received more money from foreign sources than previously known. Trump also attacked billionaire Jeff Bezos multiple times. He accused him of using business losses at the Washington Post as a big tax shelter to screw the public, essentially. According to the Times, Trump took huge deductions, including $70,000 to take care of his hair, and also appeared to write off hundreds of thousands of dollars paying his daughter Ivanka as a consultant to the Trump Organization, even though she was employed as an employee of the Trump Organization. And then there's this, Trump bragging that he, quote, will pay more taxes in 1 year than you pay in your entire life. Again, while paying no taxes for 10 of 15 years. And he is flexing here. He's posing next to a tall stack of papers with the caption, signing a recent tax return. Isn't this ridiculous? President Trump is denying the New York Times report, calling it fake news. Joining me now, journalist and CNN political analyst Carl Bernstein with us. And Carl, just give us your reaction to what's really a bombshell report here.
This is really the smoking gun of a pervasively criminal presidency. We have a president of the United States who is a grifter. His family are grifters, and this is the definitive evidence of it. But more grievous and grotesque and dangerous are the national security implications of the New York Times report. I think you have to go back to a statement by Eric Trump a while back that said, well, the son of the president, well, we don't rely on American banks. We have all the funding we need out of Russia. This once again points to the president's foreign entanglements for his own political purposes and his own financial good. This is an unraveling that we now need to do in the press and the Congress of the United States to find out just how great a national security threat to this country our president is, particularly in his dealings with Putin, with Erdogan of Turkey. What this report in the Times shows is the pervasive ability of these countries to hold the president up. And as a former national security director of national intelligence, Dan Coates said recently, he believes that Putin has something on Trump. And we need to follow all of these leads now to see where it really takes us. Follow the money, follow the lies.
He owes a lot of money, and it's very unclear to whom he owes that money. This report, though, just very much shatters something that had been tarnished already, which was Trump's image as a successful billionaire tycoon. You did use the word criminal. So when you look at this, I know you believe that this is very much a con that we're seeing play out in this report, but you also think it's a crime? Explain that.
Well, there's certainly implications of tax fraud to begin with that needs to be looked at and will be looked at. But again, the question of what other obligations does he have? For instance, he has put up people in his hotels from these foreign countries. The sources of his income are unknown, but they have to do with favors he has possibly granted to foreign entities. That's suggested time and again in the New York Times report. This president needs to be thoroughly investigated in terms of how the United States has or may have been compromised by his actions, his selfishness, his putting his own interests, financial, in front of the interest of the United States. What this report proves, beyond a doubt, is what we have been reporting a long time, and that is he did not expect to win the 2016 election, that he wanted to improve his financial condition. He was underwater. That's what we see here. It has been a house of cards, the Trump organization. And he is hundreds of millions of dollars in debt that he now must find a way to come up with this money. How can we have a president of the United States with these kinds of obligations? And it is time for Republicans, especially in Congress, to say, wait a minute, we need to look at this. We can't blindly endorse this man with what we now know about his tax situation, about how he may have compromised our national security. This is a grievous, dangerous moment because of what is revealed in the New York Times reporting.
He claims that it's fake news. He is also, though, accusing the New York Times of illegally obtaining the information and having only bad intent. I mean, if something is fake news, there wouldn't be something to be illegally obtained. And P.S., we should mention that this wasn't illegally obtained. The New York Times is clear about that. What's your reaction to him kind of covering all of his bases here?
He's always tried to make the conduct of the press the issue instead of his own conduct. And here he's doing it once again. But the fact remains, the New York Times has done a remarkable public service by simply putting these returns and what they say out there. How they came by them is not the issue here. They say in their story that it came from people with legal, L-E-G-A-L, access to them. That's not the issue. The issue is Donald Trump and whether or not he has compromised the American people once again for his own financial gain and for his grifter family. This is something unprecedented in our history. A president of the United States with all of these conflicts of interest, who has not paid his taxes, has not revealed his taxes, and yet we see now that these taxes are the key to understanding his whole presidency. That's what this is. We now have a template to put over all of his actions as president of the United States. And that template is what is in these tax returns. And we need to know, what do those actions as president look like? What are those phone calls? I did a report about 8 weeks ago about the president's phone calls with Putin, with Erdogan, with other authoritarian leaders, all of them in places where he has financial interests. So now we've got a lot to go on. And it's time that the Congress of the United States, even at this late moment, not just the voters, take a look at the national security implications of this. And even if he leaves office, we still have the problem of a president of the United States with all that national security information who is compromised. That's the problem. He is compromised to foreign entities. These reports and his tax returns certainly indicate. Let him show us how he's not compromised, if that's the case.
It is Tuesday, the 29th of September of 2020, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays, a small scant dash, a mere pinch of hot smoked Hungarian paprika will make all the difference in the world. Speaking of a difference in the world, guess what investigative journalism will get you? That's right. Sometimes more than the duly appointed special prosecutor investigators that were tasked with, I guess, covering it up, ultimately. You know, there was a senator during the Nixon times that they being the Nixon White House, had essentially pegged to release a report absolving the Nixon White House and campaign of any wrongdoing. And he was known as somewhat of a doddering fellow, and I'm so sorry I forget his name. But he was specifically picked because he was maybe going a little, they used to use the term senile back in the day. And I wondered if Mueller was pegged for a similar task. By all reports from inside that office, he was not the Bob Mueller of old. And it was a little sad listening to his testimony because, well, he did seem a little confused. I actually felt bad for him, and I thought, you know what? That's elder abuse. Not by the questioning from the oversight committees, but elder abuse from the Trump White House putting Bob Mueller in that predicament. So we have a few books coming out, or are out today, as a matter of fact. Weissman's book drops. And that's one that I want to get. And I want to read Strzok's book, too. Oh, which reminds me, Strzok has sent a letter to the judge that it looks like the Flynn defense team altered his notes, which are evidence. They altered and did something with evidence. Now, we don't quite know the import of what was altered, but that's altering evidence. That's messing up with evidence. And this guy wants to take back his guilty plea. Oh, I didn't mean it. Now that I got well, you looks like a dictator that's going to say it's all okay. I was just doing God's work and Donald Trump is God. Yeah. And I suppose this whole tax scandal to his minions, they'll look at it and go, oh, jeez, if you can't cheat at taxes, what kind of an American are you? See? They have perverted what it is to be an American. They cannot understand how someone else can be in service to another. They think everything must be transactional. I gotta dip my beak. And we are looked at as suckers and losers because, what? We pay taxes? We want to live in civilization? We want to help the least of these? Somehow, in their convoluted logic, and shall I say, perverted minds, help is a sin. Giving help is a sin. Taking from the traveler. Apparently the Good Samaritan, instead of helping the traveler, went over there and robbed him. Like all the others that were on the road to Damascus. The prosperity gospel doesn't have room for a good Samaritan. Not the kind that we know. The good Samaritan is just able to take more. That's what makes a good businessman. Who can cheat the best? And by the best, it doesn't mean that you can get away with it, but who can cheat the best? Who can cheat more? More is the best. So, at the top of the show, we had a little breakdown there with Carl Bernstein of Watergate fame. Follow the money. Two big issues are involved here. One is just the rank hypocrisy, the abject, absolute projection when Trump is attacking Obama for taking foreign money and paying taxes in a foreign government. What the hell? While at the same time, he got no money from the United States that can be actually of note. And he paid no taxes in the United States, but he did pay a lot of taxes on, well, relatively speaking. He paid tens of thousands of dollars to the Philippines. He paid a bunch of money to Turkey. And you know that he paid probably about $421 million. No, maybe that's the loan. $421 million that he owes Russia. I guess you have to pay tax on that there. I guess. Except the way that they get their taxes paid there, it's you don't just go to a window, shall we say. Yeah, you go into a meeting, and you don't know if there's an axe being wielded or a baseball bat. And they don't call them baseball bats because they don't play baseball in Russia. Come on. Oh, boy. So we have a mob cartel government. And over 200 judges have been appointed and have been seated under this crook, this traitor, this Russian money launderer, this tax scofflaw. Civil asset forfeiture, this guy's properties. And while we're at it, maybe these appointments should be looked at again. You can't just appoint leaders into a business under subterfuge and expect that to stand after you've been busted. This BS. This America. All right. Well, we'll see how many of the cops are on this guy's side, because I have a big feeling that there's a lot of folks in the police departments that are pretty perturbed by the direction of these, right-wing fascists that are populating police forces. I don't know, maybe I'm just being a romantic. I don't think that the police departments are completely Nazi, KKK populated forces. I think you have a pretty damn strong contingent, but the vast majority of those police departments are like the rest of America. It's a microcosm of the dynamics of what goes on in the rest of America. The bulk of those police departments are pretty much hunkered down, getting the job done, and these loudmouth extremists over here get all the attention. And unfortunately, they do wield a bit of power, and there is the old, one for all for one, and if I'm breaking the law, you better back me up. Well, that dynamic ought to change, and it ought to change real quick. And I am not kidding when I say there needs to be a purge. We need to purge these illegal appointments in the judiciary. We need to purge the right-wing Nazi KKK elements out of our police forces, our constabularies. And I would hope that all these EPA laws that were overturned some that have stood for decades and decades and decades, are reinstated. A crook should not benefit from the illegal gains of his begotten illegal gains. I mean, come on, this is America. What's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? Oh, one other thing about, hey, this is America. Looks like the grand jury testimony in the Breonna Taylor case will be released, since a grand juror came forward and said that the Attorney General essentially lied. So we'll be following that story as it develops. Well, on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays, Democratic House members are set to introduce a bill that would stop the Senate from blocking a Supreme Court pick like it did to Obama. Well, we'll only be able to pass that when we take over the Senate. The GOP's craven response to Ginsburg's death could turn the tide blue in the Texas Senate race. And in the wake of the fatal shooting of a federal judge's son and the wounding of her husband, bipartisan legislation seeks to restrict online access to judges' personal information. Well, it's about time. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where Germany's hard-right Alternative for Germany party fired an official who had been caught on hidden camera discussing gassing refugees. Now, I might add that they're not necessarily adverse to gassing refugees, but you don't want to get caught admitting it. And Mexican women charged police lines and tossed Molotov cocktails at officers during demonstrations demanding the legalization of abortion in the predominantly Catholic nation. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the rightish of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is, of course, monitored by Kelly Lincoln, and we thank Kelly for doing so. To the leftish of that chat room link at the bottom, or near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, is the link to our Patreon page, and of course we have that there because since we pay our bills, we have to use money to do it. And you are very important in getting us some money. Because if you could afford an espresso-type coffee drink and send those funds to us once a month, we are able to stretch those dollars beyond compare. And I mean beyond compare. Then we pay our bills, fly under the radar, and fulfill our civic duty as the founders originally intended. Oh, so many years ago. But all kidding aside, bills are going up. We are in the last months of acquiring the needed machinery that we need. The workhorses that have been working like horses for the last 4+ years of this 10-year run of Resistance Radio need to spend some time in the pasture, and we need to get these newer workhorses, newish workhorses, because none of them are new, up and running and working like horses so that we can, continue on resisting as the founders originally intended. And we thank you for your generosity in allowing us to do so. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, Tom takes care of that. And you can find our Twitter feed at Netroots Radio. How simple is that? You can also follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam, man spelled backwards. Putnam. Okay. And I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Kos about 10 minutes before showtime. And then get that linked up on social media so people will see it. Because the show notes and the links are vitally important to this multimedia operation that we call West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West. And pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc. etc., etc. All right, let's dive into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. We do put roasted corn in the chowder because that's how we do it. It's lovely. Amy Lou of the American Independent brings us this first offering. House Democrats plan to introduce a bill today, Tuesday, containing a provision that would prevent the Senate from delaying action on a Supreme Court nomination for more than 120 days. Representatives Ro Khanna of California, Joe Kennedy III of Massachusetts, and Don Beyer of Virginia are co-sponsors of the Supreme Court Term Limits and Regular Appointments Act of 2020. If the Senate does not exercise its advice and consent authority with respect to a president's nominee to the Supreme Court within 120 days after the nomination, the Senate shall be deemed to have waived its advice and consent authority with respect to such nominee, and the nominee shall be seated as a justice of the Supreme Court, the provision states. Khanna, the chair of the House Progressive Caucus, said the bill would save the country a lot of agony and help lower the temperature over fights for the court that go to the fault lines of cultural issues and is one of the primary things tearing at our social fabric, he said. In a statement released on Friday, Khanna said it's time to standardize and to democratize the Supreme Court. Wait until they find out. Democratize this? No way. On March 16th of 2016, President Barack Obama nominated Judge Merrick Garland to fill the seat on the court previously held by the late Justice Antonin Scalia. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell refused to hold hearings on Garland's nomination or even meet with the judge, so why the hell are people going to actually meet with this noxious ACB? They want to call her notorious. They want to appropriate the notorious Ruth Bader Ginsburg moniker. Now, she's more like a noxious Ann Coney Barrett. Why are they going to meet with her? Don't even have an interview. No customary interviews. Forget it. Nearly 7 months elapsed between Garland's nomination and the 2016 presidential election. And this year, Donald Trump, McConnell, and Senate Republicans hope to confirm Trump's Supreme Court nomination of Barrett less than 2 months before the November election. The House bill aims to reduce bitter partisan fighting over Supreme Court nominations with an 18-year term limit for justices. The new limit would not apply to justices who are already confirmed and seated on the court. We'll just have to impeach the ones that were put there that are unqualified as they are. Justices who finish serving their 18-year term would be designated senior justices and then would be rotated to serve on lower courts. Should there be a Supreme Court vacancy, senior justices could be assigned to serve on the court until a replacement is confirmed. We cannot face a national crisis every time a vacancy occurs on the Supreme Court, Khanna said. No justice should feel the weight of an entire country on their shoulders. No president should be able to shift the ideology of our highest judicial body by mere chance. Donna Provencher of the American Independent brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Senator John Cornyn, Repug of Texas, and Democratic opponent M.J. Hager's tight Texas Senate race is anyone's game after increased donations for Hager, as well as an endorsement from Barack Obama, arrived following Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death. It all started last week when Cornyn expressed his support for filling Ginsburg's Supreme Court seat immediately. I hope our colleagues on the other side of the aisle will try to restrain themselves from repeating the smear campaign that took place during Justice Kavanaugh's confirmation hearing, he added. Asked by Congressional Quarterly Roll Call last week whether he thought the Supreme Court vacancy would affect his own Senate race, Cornyn said, "It would be a major factor. But I can see it cutting both ways in terms of people's response," he noted. "They seem pretty polarized already." With a hotly contested Supreme Court seat on the line, Texas Democrats and others have rallied around Air Force veteran and Purple Heart honoree Hager with a renewed verve. Speaking to Ginsburg's death in the high court race, Democratic Texas consultant Sonia Van Meter told Roll Call, "I see all of this really revving up the Democratic base, but also appealing to suburban women who may have been conservative in the past but are not seeing any kind of reason to stay with the Republican Party, and the facts do not lie. Donate processing site Act Blue received more than $100 million in donations for Democratic candidates in the 2 days following Ginsburg's death. According to Hager's Senate campaign, Hager was one of the major beneficiaries. The Democratic candidate from Round Rock, Texas, received more than 200,000 donations at that time, though campaign officials declined to give an exact dollar amount. Billy Begala, a spokesman for the party's Cornyn War Room, told the Austin American-Statesman that after Ginsburg's death, Hager's campaign also saw an enormous uptick in both volunteers and small dollar donations. And although Cornyn received endorsements last week from 100 South Texas leaders and elected officials, Hager's weekend saw an endorsement from a much more prominent source. Yeah, Obama. According to Data for Progress, Cornyn maintains a mere 2-point lead over Hager, which is in the error realm there. So it's possible that the death of Ginsburg and the SCOTUS tensions could upset the apple cart for the Republican incumbent. This is especially true considering 22% of voters identify as undecided in the Cornyn-Hager race. Anonymous worker bees at the Associated Press bring us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. In the wake of the fatal shooting of a federal judge's son in New Jersey, bipartisan legislation seeks to restrict online access to judges' personal info. 20-year-old Daniel Anderl, the son of U.S. District Judge Esther Salas, was shot and killed inside the family's home on July 19 by a gunman posing as a delivery driver. Salas's husband, Mark Anderl was seriously wounded and is recovering. Salas was in another part of the house and was not injured. The assailant, Roy Den Hollander, was a disgruntled lawyer who had posted anti-feminist screeds and who had a document with information about a dozen female judges around the country. He was involved in a gender bias case before Salas, in which he challenged the U.S. military's male-only draft registration requirement. Well, Den Hollander killed himself in upstate New York shortly after shooting Anderl. Democratic New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez, who recommended Salas for the bench during the Obama administration, announced the Daniel Anderl Judicial Security and Privacy Act yesterday, Monday. He was joined by fellow Democratic New Jersey Senator Cory Booker, who serves on the Senate Judiciary Committee, and Democratic New Jersey Rep. Mikey Sherrill, who appeared in court before Salas during her years as a federal prosecutor. Republican Lindsey Graham, chair of the Judiciary Committee, is co-sponsoring the bill, Menendez said. Now, the bill would make it illegal for online aggregators to sell or make public personal info about judges and their families, including home addresses, social security numbers, school and employment information. It would also give federal marshals more resources to assess and track threats to judges. Salas, in a video posted on YouTube 2 weeks after the shooting, called it unacceptable that personal information is so easily accessible. Menendez said he believed the legislation would not infringe on free speech rights. Well, look, getting information to kill a judge is a lot worse than yelling fire in a crowded theater. Please. All right, let's get to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world. And we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today on this Debate Day, indeed. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Emily Schweng.
Given that hundreds of thousands of dinosaur bones have been dug up, is there any evidence that dinosaurs got cancer?
David Evans, Senior Curator of Paleontology at the Royal Museum of Ontario in Toronto.
There had been a few studies that had kind of suggested, based on just like gross anatomy, that dinosaurs might have gotten cancer. But there was nothing compelling from a medical standpoint. And from that point on, we decided to go on a hunt for rare dinosaur diseases, in particular cancer.
So in 2017, Evans and colleagues went digging through a collection of dinosaur bones at the Royal Tyrrell Museum of Paleontology in Alberta, a hotbed of dinosaur fossils.
And out of the hundreds of dinosaur bones that we looked at, we found one that was a candidate for bone cancer.
The bone specimen Evans and his colleagues found comes from a dinosaur that roamed Western Canada between 70 and 75 million years ago. The creature is called a Centrosaurus.
Centrosaurus is a horned dinosaur. It's about the size of a rhinoceros, and it's a close cousin of the famous Triceratops. So it looked very similar. It would have had a parrot-like beak at the end of its large skull, had a neck shield similar to Triceratops, and walked around on 4 feet and eat plants.
Its apparent cancer is a particularly aggressive type.
And this would have made it more vulnerable to the top predators of the time, which were cousins of T-Rex. But we actually don't think that it's the cancer that killed this animal, even though if it were allowed to run its course, it certainly would have been fatal.
The tumorous bone was discovered among thousands of other bones from the same species. All these animals appeared to have died in a coastal flood.
And this flood looks like it killed a herd of these horned dinosaurs, Centrosaurus, which are known for living in large social groups. And we suspect, although we can't prove, that the cancer could get to such an advanced state because this animal was able to benefit from the safety and numbers of being in a herd, whereas if it was out on its own with this devastating disease, it certainly would have had a good chance of being picked off before the cancer progressed this far.
The study's in the journal Lancet Oncology. Evans says the research introduces a new way to study paleopathology in the fossil record.
This discovery definitely takes dinosaurs, which we often think of as almost sort of mythical, powerful creatures. And I think it shows that they were real animals in a way that's really unique and sombering, that they got diseases similar to the ones that humans get today. And they would have suffered greatly from these diseases. And so it brings them to life in a really unusual way.
Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Emily Schwing.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Welcome to A Cup of Health with CDC, a weekly feature of the MMWR, the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. I'm your host, Dr. Kathleen Dooling. Occasional aches and pains are an expected part of life, but for many people, pain is a constant companion. Dr. Chad Helmick is with CDC's National Center for Chronic Disease Prevention and Health Promotion. He's joining us today to discuss ways to manage chronic pain. Welcome to the show, Chad.
Thank you.
Chad, how many people in the U.S. suffer from chronic pain?
In 2016, 50 million adults had chronic pain, which is pain on most or every day in the past 6 months. More interesting, though, is that 20 million people have high-impact chronic pain, which is chronic pain that also limits their work or life activities on most or every day in the past 6 months. This is a problem because chronic pain is associated not only with symptoms, but with anxiety and depression, reduced quality of life, and the risk of opioid problems.
What are the most common causes of chronic pain?
The most common causes generally relate to bones and joints, like low back pain and arthritis, but there are many other causes: headaches, sickle cell disease, fibromyalgia, surgery and injuries, and many, many others.
Is chronic pain more common in any particular group of people?
Yes, it occurs at all ages, but it's more common in older middle-aged adults and in the oldest 85 and older. It's also more common in women, poor people, and those who live in rural areas.
How is chronic pain treated?
Well, the first thing to do is to get a diagnosis, which can help guide treatment. But the thinking about chronic pain now is that it becomes a chronic disease by itself, regardless of the cause, and that can cause significant problems. The real goal in management is to have a manageable level of pain, not to get rid of all pain. There's several steps that can be taken, and these are sometimes difficult to do because of barriers to access. But it makes sense to do the simplest and safest things first. And these are non-drug steps. Things like physical activity. Walking is perfectly good to help reduce pain. Also, self-management education can give you some confidence in managing chronic pain when you're on your own. There's also physical therapy, occupational therapy, psychological therapy, better sleep, which usually means less alcohol, and seeing a chiropractor or getting biofeedback and massage. If that's not enough, non-opioid drugs like Tylenol or Motrin and Advil or naproxen or Aleve can help. If those don't work, then it's time to consider something stronger. Sometimes that's opioids, but there's not great evidence that opioids are good for long-term pain in most people.
Do you have any advice for people suffering from chronic pain?
Well, it's important to work with a variety of providers who are working together to help you. The goal, again, is manageable pain so you can live a productive life. This can include physical therapy, most people can walk, to treat any underlying depression or anxiety, and to avoid further injuries. Finally, the National Pain Strategy is laying out a strategic roadmap to improve pain management system in this country.
Where can listeners get more information about managing chronic pain?
Listeners can go to the NIH website, nih.gov, and type in National Pain Strategy.
Thanks, Chad. I've been talking today with Dr. Chad Helmick about ways to manage chronic pain. If you're experiencing daily pain, talk with your healthcare provider to ensure you have the correct diagnosis and know how to manage your condition. Until next time, be well. This is Dr. Kathleen Dooling for A Cup of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. And it doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution, and you'll get a wondiferous pair of Netroots radio stickers for application to your backpack, your bumper sticker, or your banjo. Well, it's up to you which backpack you want to put it on. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage, because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
President Trump has refused to commit to a peaceful transfer of power. Now what?
I'm Tom Hartman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute with ACLU attorney Bill Newman.
Listen to Trump's Orwellian logic. He repeats that he obviously will win the election. The only way he could lose is if the election is rigged. He would abide by the results of a fair election, but the only election that would be fair is one that he wins. Trump's later modification of his position is in some ways even more chilling. He asserted with certainty that the election will be decided by the Supreme Court, thereby promising that if he is not pronounced the winner, he'll sue, and that he'll win his lawsuit. Trump also made clear that one big reason to push his Supreme Court nominee to Senate confirmation is so that he can feel confident that the court, at least 5-4, will reinstall him as president when his challenge to the election results ends up before the 9 justices. In other words, the election is not so much about the more than 150 million popular votes and the divvying up of the 538 electoral college votes, but rather about 9 votes, the 9 Supreme Court justices' votes. Of course, the popular vote and the reported electoral college vote actually really do matter. The bigger Trump's loss, if he loses, the more implausible his challenge will appear to the judges and justices who will be called upon to rule on his lawsuit to decide who will be the president as of January 20th, 2021.
The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because democracy and advocacy begin with you, and freedom can't defend itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1789. That was the day that the United States Congress officially created the United States Army. Not everyone agreed that the U.S. should have a standing army. 2 years earlier, at the meeting that drafted the U.S. Constitution, James Madison warned against a permanent federal army. He told those at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia, quote, "A standing military force with an overgrown executive will not long be safe companions to liberty." Since Madison was a strong proponent of a centralized federal government, his caution about the Army was noteworthy. Perhaps these warnings is why it took Congress until the last day of their session to finally approve the measure. In fact, President George Washington had to write Congress not once, but twice to get them to act on the issue. Once it was approved, the first standing army had about 800 members. By comparison, in 2015, the Army had just under 500,000 active duty soldiers. To supplement the small army, Congress also made a provision for the president to call up troops from state militias. The stated purpose for such call-ups was, quote, protecting the inhabitants of the frontiers of the United States from hostile incursions of the Indians. While in federal service, the state militias were supposed to receive, quote, the same as the pay and substance as the regular army. One time, various state militias were used for the forced removal of the Cherokee people from the southeast on the Trail of Tears in the 1830s. State militias were also deployed to break up labor strikes. Such is the case in the Homestead Strike in Pennsylvania in 1892. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 52 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high of nearly the same as yesterday, 95 to 97. Sunny mostly throughout the day, winds light and variable with clear skies overnight, lows in the mid to upper 50s. Winds will be light and variable, and sunny tomorrow with highs near 95 and 97 with winds light and variable under sunny conditions. The confirmed coronavirus cases in Jackson County down here in southern Oregon now stands at 1,161 with 5 confirmed deceased. It just keeps getting worse. Well, ragweed pollen is rated low right outside the window here at the mothership in Rogue River proper. The air quality index for the region is rated good at 23 parts per million, and that is good. And the daytime UV index is moderate at 5. Barometric pressure is, it's rising at 30.04 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles, and relative humidity is at 61%. Quite dry. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. It looks like London is 65 and partly cloudy. Paris is 65 and partly cloudy. Rome is 73 and sunny. Kyiv is 67 with a light rain shower. Kabul is 63 and partly cloudy. Hong Kong is 80 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 65 and mostly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 58 and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 55 degrees and mostly cloudy. And New York is 74 degrees Fahrenheit with a rain shower. And a flood warning, too. Look out. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Anonymous worker bees at Reuters bring us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Germany's hard-right alternative for Germany, the AfD party, fired an official yesterday, Monday, who had been caught on a hidden camera discussing gassing refugees. In footage recorded secretly by Pro7 television in February, Christian Luth, then a party spokesman, was filmed in a Berlin cafe talking to someone he believed to be a sympathizer about the challenges the AfD faced. Asked if the AfD wanted to see more immigrants, he replied yes, because then things get better for the AFD. We can still shoot them all afterwards, he said, or gas them. Whichever way you like, I don't care. Either way. Die Zeit newspaper said it was shown the footage, which it said was filmed by Lisa Licencia, a right-wing YouTube personality, who had decided to leave the far-right scene. Die Zeit said nothing indicated Luth was joking. German media reported that Luth was dismissed as an employee of the party's parliamentary group. The group's spokesman was not immediately available to comment. Neither Luth nor Licencio could immediately be reached. Luth was already suspended from his position as party spokesman in April over an email in which he wrote that the word fascist was overused. The AFD entered Germany's parliament in an election in 2017 and is now the largest party opposing Angela Merkel's government, a right-left grand coalition. The far-right party has been monitored by the security services, and other parties consider it to be beyond the pale. Party officials who strongly deny that it has links to neo-Nazi groups, but a lot of neo-Nazi groups want to be a part of them, and are. Nobody hates our beautiful country like the AFD, tweeted Konstantin Kuhl, domestic affairs spokesman for the pro-business Free Democrats. The footage was due to be broadcast last evening. Now, for those of you kids out there who are unaware, under Adolf Hitler's Nazis, Germany murdered 6 million Jews during World War II, killing many in gas chambers.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
And even more anonymous worker bees of the Reuters staff bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Women charged police lines and threw Molotov cocktails at officers in Mexico City yesterday, Monday, during protests demanding the legalization of abortion in the majority Roman Catholic country. The protesters, clad in the green bandanas that have become the symbol of the pro-choice movement in Latin America, gathered in Mexico's capital to mark International Safe Abortion Day, which is celebrated each year on September 28th. Police, many of them female officers, responded by spraying plumes of tear gas at the women, some of whom wielded hammers and threw bottles and paint. At least one officer was briefly engulfed in flames after being hit by a Molotov cocktail before colleagues doused the fire with an extinguisher, television images showed. Now, abortion is illegal in Mexico outside the capital city and the southern state of Oaxaca, which legalized the medical procedure last year. In the rest of Mexico, abortion is banned, except under certain circumstances, such as rape. Abortion law has been receiving renewed attention after the death in the United States of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a pioneering women's rights advocate, which has cast doubt over the future of legal abortion there. Indeed. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, and you do know that we'll meet up tomorrow for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays because Netroots Radio will be broadcasting on. And this is debate night, and maybe Malloy and a few of the other live feeds will be picking up the debate. Otherwise, we'll be commenting on it. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goer. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme aux langues de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum.